I'd just taken her tea up this morning when she said to me, "I think the world of you, Graham." So I said, "I think the world of you too." She said, "That's all right then." I said, "What's brought this on?" She said, "Nothing. This tea looks strong. Pull the curtains." Of course, I knew what had brought it on. She said, "I wouldn't like you to think you're not number one." I said, "Well, you're number one with me. Give me your teeth, I'll swill them." What it was, we'd had a spot of excitement yesterday. We ran into a bit of mother's past. I said, "I didn't know you had a past. I thought I was your past." She said, "You?" I said, "Well, we go back a long way. How does he fit in vis-a-vis Dad?" She laughed. "Oh, he was pre-Dad." I said, "Pre-Dad? I'm surprised you remember him. You don't remember to switch your blanket off." She said, "That's different. His name's Turnbull." I said, "I know." He said. I parked her up by the War Memorial in her usual spot while I went to get some reading matter. And then I waited while she spent a penny in the disabled toilets. She's not actually disabled. Her memory is bad. But she says she prefers their toilets because you get more elbow room. She always takes forever, diddling her hands and whatnot. And when she eventually comes back, it turns out she's been chatting to the attendant. I said, "What about?" She said, "Hanging. She was in favour of stiffer penalties for minor offences, and I thought, well, we know better, our Graham and me. I wish you'd been there, love. You could have given her the statistics." The thing about Mam is that although she's never had a proper education, she's picked up enough from me to be able to hold her own in discussions about up-to-the-minute issues like the environment and the colour problem. And for a woman of her age and background, she has a very liberal slant. She take a look at my Guardian and she actually thinks for herself. Dr. Chowdhury says, "Top marks, Graham. The best way to avoid a broken hip is to have a flexible mind. Keep up the good work." They go mad round the War Memorial. So when we cross over, I'll generally slip my arm through hers until we're safely across. Only once we reach the pavement, she'll postpone letting it go, because once upon a time we were stopped by one of those questionnaire women who reckons to take us for husband and wife. I mean, Mam's got white hair. Well, she was doing this dodge, and I said, "Let go of my arm, Mam. I didn't really wrench it." Only next thing I knew, she's flat on the pavement. I said, "Oh my God, Mother." People gather round and I pick up her bag and she sits up and says, "I've landed both my stockings." I said, "Never mind your stockings, what about your pelvis?" She said, "It's these bifocals, they tell you not to look down. I was avoiding some sick." Someone says, "That voice sounds familiar." And there's this little fella bending over her. Green trilby hat. Shorty raincoat. "Hello," he says. "Remember me?" Well, she doesn't remember people. I know for a fact, because she swore me down she'd never met Joy Buckle, who teaches flowers in felt and fabric at my day centre. I said, "You have met Joy. You knitted her a tea cosy." That's all she can knit. Tea cosies. And bed socks. Both outmoded articles. I said, "Branch out. If you can knit tea cosies, you can knit skiing hats." She said, "Well, I will. Only I have to stand over her, else she'll still leave a hole for the spout." "Anyway," I said, "you do remember Joy, because you said she had some shocking eyebrows." She said, "I hope you didn't tell her that." I said, "Of course I didn't." She said, "Well, I don't remember." And that's the way it is. She doesn't remember. And here's this little fella saying, "Remember me?" So I said, "No, she won't. Come along, Mother. Let's get you up." Only she says, "Remember you? Of course. It's Frank Turnbull. It must be 50 years. He said 52. Filey 1934. She said, "Seacrest." He said, "No sand in the bedrooms." And they both cracked out laughing. Meanwhile, she's still stuck on the cold pavement. I said, "Come along, Mother. We don't want piles." Only he butts in again. "With respect," he says, "it's advisable not to move a person until it's been ascertained no bones are broken." I was with the St. John's Ambulance Brigade. Yes, she said. And who did you learn your bandaging on? And they both burst out laughing again. He had on these bright yellow gloves. Could have been a bookie. Finally, I get my arms around her and hoist her up. Only his lordship's no help, as he claims to have a bad back. When I eventually get her restored to the perpendicular, she introduces him. This is Frank Turnbull, a friend from the old days. What old days? First time I knew there were any old days. Turns out he's a gents outfitter, semi-retired. Shop in Bradford and some sort of outlet in Morecambe. I thought, well, that accounts for the yellow gloves. Straight off he takes charge. What you need now, Vera, is a nice cup of coffee. I said, well, we were just on our way for some tea, weren't we, Mother? Vera. Her name's not Vera. Nobody calls her Vera. My dad never called her Vera. Except that one time as they were wheeling him into the theatre. Vera. Right, he says. Follow me. And he puts his arm through hers. Careful, she says. You make my boyfriend jealous. I didn't say anything. Now, the cafe we generally patronise is just that bit different. It's plain, but it's classy. No cloths on the tables. The menu comes on a little slate. The waitresses wear their own clothes and look as if they're doing it just for the fun of it. All the stuff's homemade, and we're both big fans of the date and walnut bread. I said, this is the place. Mr. Turnbull goes straight past. No, he says. I know a place, just opened. Press on. Now, if there's one thing Mother and me are agreed upon, it's that red is a common colour. And the whole place is done out in red. Lampshades red, waitresses in red, plates red. And on the tables, these little sauce things got up to look like tomatoes. Also red. And when I look, there's a chip in the sugar. I thought, Mother won't like this. Oh, this looks cheerful, she said. I said, there's a chip in the sugar. Detail, said Mr. Turnbull. They're still having their teething troubles. Is it 3 coffees? I said, well, we like tea, don't we, Mother? Only she said, no, I feel like an adventure. I'll have coffee. Mr. Turnbull gets hold of the menu and he puts his hand on hers. Might I suggest, he says, a cheeseburger? Oh, she says, what's that? He says it's fresh country beef mingled with golden fried onions, topped off with cheese, served with French fries and lemon wedge. Ooh, lemon wedge, said Mother. That sounds nice. And I thought, well, I just hope you can keep it down, because it'll be the pizza story all over again. One mouthful and at 4 o'clock in the morning I'm still stuck by the bedside with a bucket. She said, I like new adventures in eating. I tried pizza once, didn't I? I didn't say anything. They fetched the food over and she's wiring in. He said, are you enjoying your cheeseburger? She said, I am. Would I be mistaken in thinking that's tomato sauce? He said, it is. She said, give us a squirt. And they both cracked out laughing. He said, glass cups, Graham. Be careful or we'll see up your nose. More laughter. Mother said, Graham's quite refined. He often has a glass of dry sherry. Well, he could do with smartening up a bit, said Mr. Turnbull. Plastic Mac. You want to get one of those quilted jobs. I've shifted a lot of those. I said, I don't like those quilted jobs. He sweats, said Mother. There's no excuse for that in this day and age, said Mr. Turnbull.
The range of preparations that are on offer. You want to invest in one of them roll-on deodorants.
Everybody could hear.
And flares are anathema even in Bradford.
Graham doesn't care, do you, Graham? Said Mother. He reads a lot.
So what? Said Mr. Turnbull. I know several big readers who still manage to be men about town. Lovett Green's a nice shade. I tell you this, Graham, if I were squiring a young lady like this around town, I wouldn't be doing it in grey socks and sandals. These shoes are Italian leather. Feel.
I always think Graham would make a good parson, said Mother. Only he doesn't believe in God.
That's no handicap these days, said Mr. Turnbull. What do you do?
She said, he's between jobs at present. He used to make soft toys for handicapped children, and then he was making paper flowers at one stage. I went to the toilet. When I came back, Mr. Turnbull said,
I don't believe in mental illness. 9 times out of 10 it's a case of pull your socks up.
I didn't say anything. Yes, said Mother. Well, I think the pendulum's gone too far. She didn't look at me.
It's like these girls not eating, he said. They'd eat if they were brought up like us, Vera. Nothing to eat.
That's right, she said. They have things too easy. Did you marry?
Twice, he said. I buried Amy last May. I were heartbroken, but life goes on. I've got a son lives in Stevenage. I've got 2 grandsons, one at the motorbike stage. Do you drive?
No, I said. You do, said Mother. You had that moped. I said it was only a scooter. Well, they're all the same. I can't get him to blow his own trumpet.
I've got a Rover 2000, said Mr. Turnbull. Handles like a dream. I think the solution to mental illness is hard physical work. Making raffia mats. I'd go mad.
Yes, said Mother. Only they do pottery as well. I've seen some nice ashtrays.
Feather bedding, said Mr. Turnbull. Do you like them Pakistanis?
Well, in moderation, she said. We've got a nice newsagent. Graham thinks we're all the same. I said, I thought you did. She said, well, I do when you explain it to me. But then I forget the explanation and I'm back to square one.
There is no explanation, said Mr. Turnbull. They sell mangoes in our post office. What explanation is there for that?
Yes, said Mother. I smelt curry on my woman's own. You have to be educated to understand. I didn't say anything. He took us home. Promised to give her a tinkle next time he's in the neighbourhood. He said he's often round this way tracking down 2-tone cardigans. He said, she's a grand woman, Graham. You want to take care of her. He does, said Mother. You're my boyfriend, aren't you? She put her arm through mine. There must be a famine on somewhere, because we were just letting our midday meal go down when the vicar calls round with some envelopes. Breezes in, anorak and running shoes. He said, I always look forward to coming here, Mrs. Whittaker. He's got the idea she's deaf, which she's not. It's one of the few things she isn't. He said, do you know why? It's because you two remind me of Jesus and his mother. Well, I've always thought Jesus was a bit offhand with his mother.
And I remember on one occasion he was quite snotty with her, but he didn't say anything. And of course, Madam's over the moon, because in her book, if you can't get compared to the Queen Mother, the Virgin Mary's the next best thing. She said, "Are you married?" He said, "No, I am married to God." She said, "Where does that leave you with the housework?" He said, "Well, I don't do as well as your Graham. He's got this place like a palace." She said, "I do my whack. I washed 4 pairs of stockings this morning." She hadn't. She put them in the bowl and then they slipped her mind and the rest of the operation devolved on me. He said, "How are you today, Mrs. Whittaker?" She said, "Stiff down one side." I said, "She had a fall yesterday." She said, "I never did." I said, "You did? You had a fall and then you met Mr. Turnbull." She said, "That's right." She started rooting in her bag for her lipstick. She said, "Is that one of them Anaraki things? They've gone out now, those. You want to look like a man around town, you want to get one of them continental quilts." He said, "Oh." I said, "She means those quilted jackets." She said, "He knows what I mean. Where'd you get those shoes?" He said, "They're training shoes." She said, "Training for what? Are you not fully qualified?" He said, "If Jesus were alive today, Mrs. Whittaker, I think you'll find these are the sort of shoes he would be wearing." She said, "Not if his mother had anything to do with it. She'd have him down Stead and Simpson and get him into some good brogues." Someone was telling me the Italians make good shoes. The vicar takes this as his cue to start on about people who have no shoes at all, and via this to the famine in Ethiopia. I fork out 50p, which he says will feed a family for 6 weeks, and she says, "Well, it would have bought me some Quality Street." When he gets to the door, he says, "I take my hat off to you, Graham. I've got a mother myself." When I get back in, she says, "Vicar, he looks more like the paper boy. How can you look up to someone in pumps?" Just then there's a knock at the door. She said, "Get down, he's back." Only it isn't. It's Mr. Turnbull. New outfit this time. Little suede coat, corduroy collar, maroon trousers. She said, "Oh, you look cheerful." He said, "We just happened to have these slacks on special offer. I was wondering if you fancied a run out to Bolton Abbey." "Oh, Bolton Abbey," she said. "That's right up our street, isn't it, Graham? Graham's very good with old buildings, aren't you, Graham? He knows all the types of houses. There's one type of house, just come in. Other people don't like it, but we do, don't we, Graham?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "You do? What is it?" "Victorian." "That's right, Victorian, only there's a lot been pulled down." Mr. Turnbull yawns. "I've got a little bungalow." "Oh, that's nice," said Mother. "I like a little bungalow, don't you, Graham?" "Yes," I said, "provided it's not a blot on the landscape." "Mine's architect designed," said Mr. Turnbull. "It's got a patio and a breakfast bar. It overlooks a beauty spot." "Oh, sounds tip-top," said Mother. "We'd better be getting our skates on, Graham." He said, "I've got a load of 3/4 length wind cheaters I need to collect in Ilkley. There won't really be room for a third party. Isn't there anything on at the pictures?" "Oh, we'll be happy reading, won't you, Graham?" she said. "Anyway," he said, "you don't always want to be with your mother at your age, do you, Graham?" I didn't say anything. I've been sat here reading with one of my magazines. I can't see, but I think there's somebody looking at the house. Once or twice I thought I heard a knock at the door, but I haven't gone in case there's nobody there.
Today they went over to York. It was after 7 when he dropped her off. Generally he comes in, but not this time. Just gives her a little kiss. She has to bend down. I said, "Oh, hello. Did you have a nice time?" She said, "Yes. Yes, we did, thank you. We had egg and chips, tea, bread and butter. We've got a lot in common and there's a grand new car park." I said, "Did you go in the Minster?" She said, "No. Frank's not keen on old buildings. We need to look more to the future. He says they built a spanking new precinct at Bradford, so that's going to be next on the agenda." "You're quiet." I said, "Well, do you wonder? Dr. Chowdhury says I should have a stable environment. This isn't a stable environment with your fancy men popping in every 5 minutes." She said, "He's not me fancy man." I said, "Well, he's your fancy man in embryo." She said, "You know I don't know what that means." I said, "How old are you?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "You do?" She said, "I don't. Tell me." I said, "You're 72. "Well, that's not so old. How old was Winston Churchill?" I said, "When?" She said, "You think you've got it over me, Graham Whittaker? Well, I'll tell you something. My memory's better with Frank. He's been telling me about the economy. You've got it all wrong." I said, "How?" She said, "I can't remember, but you have. Blaming it on the government? Frank says it's the blacks." I didn't say anything. Just came to my room. When I go back down, she still sat there with her hat and coat on. I said, "Do you want to knit him a tea cosy?" She said, "I don't think he's the tea cosy type. When I first met him, he had a motorbike and sidecar. Besides, I think it's gone beyond the tea cosy stage." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Graham, my one aim in life is for you to be happy. If I thought that by dying it would make you happy, I would." I said, "Mother, your dying wouldn't make me happy. In fact, the reverse. It would make me unhappy. Anyway, Mother, you're not going to die." She said, "No, I'm not going to die. But I am going to get married and the honeymoon's in Tenerife. Have one of your tablets." She went to make a cup of tea. I said, "How can you go to Tenerife? You were smothered in Scarborough." She said, "It's a 4-star hotel with tip-top air conditioning. You get your breakfast off a long table." I said, "What about your bowels?" She said, "What about me bowels?" "Well, they were unpredictable at Morecambe. Get them to the Canary Islands, they're going to be all over the place." She said, "Who said anything about the Canary Islands? I'm going to Tenerife." I said, "What about post-Tenerife? Where are you going to live?" She said, "Here. Frank says he'll be away on and off on business, but he'd like to call this place home." I said, "What about me?" She went into the kitchen. "Well, we wondered if you'd prefer to go back to the hostel. You were happy at the hostel. You rubbed shoulders with all sorts." I said, "Ma'am, this is my home." She said, "A man of your age shouldn't still be living with his mother, Frank says. Have you had one of your tablets?" Now it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. There's a car parked outside. I can't see, but I think there might be somebody in it watching the house like they used to before. I thought all that chapter was closed. This morning I went to community caring down at the health centre. It caters for all sorts. Steve, who runs it, is dead against what he calls the ghetto approach. What he's after is a nice mix of personality difficulties as being the most fruitful exercise in problem solving and a more realistic model of society generally. There's a constant flow of coffee, oiling the wheels, Steve calls it, and we're all encouraged to ventilate our problems and generally let our hair down. I sometimes feel a bit left out of it as I've never had any particular problems. So this time, when Steve says, "Right, chaps and chapesses, who wants to get the ball rolling?" I get in quick and tell them about Mother and Mr. Turnbull. When I've finished, Steve says, "Thank you, Graham, for sharing your problem with us. Would anybody like to kick it around?" First off the mark is Leonard, who wants to know if Graham has fully appreciated that old people can fall in love and have relationships generally the same as young people. I suppose this is understandable coming from Leonard, as he's 65. Only he doesn't have meaningful relationships. He's been had up for exposing himself in Sainsbury's doorway. As Mother said, Tesco, you could understand it. Then Janice chips in. Had they been having sexual intercourse? I said I didn't want to think about it. Steve said, why not? So I said, I don't know. So he said, maybe what we should be discussing is why Graham is so defensive about sexual intercourse. I said, I'm not being defensive about sexual intercourse. She is my mother. Then Jackie, who's 9 parts lesbian, said, Graham, she's also a woman. I couldn't believe this. I said, Jackie, you're an ex-battered wife. I thought you didn't believe in marriage. She said, Graham, I believe in caring marriage. I said, Jackie, this isn't caring marriage. She said, Graham, what's Tenerife? That's caring. All I got was a black eye and a day trip to Fleetwood. Then they all have a go. Get Graham. Steve summed up. The general feeling of the group is that Graham could be more open. I said, how can I be more open? There's somebody watching the house. I wanted to talk about that, only Leonard said he felt the need to discuss an episode behind British Home Stores. I sat it out for a bit and came home. Mother's sat there, all dolled up, earrings in, chiffon scarf, lathered in makeup. She said, oh, I thought you were Frank. I said, no. She said, I'll just go to the lab. She goes 3 times in the next 10 minutes. I said, you're not getting married today, are you? She said, no. They've opened up a new Asda superstore in Bingley, so we thought we'd give it the once over. Frank says they've got a very good selection of suntan lotions. I said, somebody's been watching the house. She said, I want to pick out some tissues, and Frank's looking for a little chamois for his windscreen. He's promised me something called a cheeseburger. There's a cafe that's part of the complex. Just then, there's a little toot on the horn, and she runs to the lav again. I said, don't go! Don't leave me, Mum! She said, I'm not giving in to you, you're a grown man. Is my underskirt showing? Another toot on the horn. She said, read one of your magazines, make yourself an omelette. I said, Mum! She said, there's that bit of chicken in the fridge. You could iron those 2 vests. Take one of your tablets, give us a kiss, toodle pip. I thought I'd sit in the back room where they couldn't see me. I've pulled the curtains and I'm sitting in the dark. And I think I hear a knock at the front door. I don't move. And there's another knock. Louder. I do like Dr. Chowdhury says and tell myself it's not happening. Only it is. Someone shouts through the letterbox. I know you're in there. Open this door. So I do. And there is someone. It's a woman. She said, are you the son? I said, what? She said, are you the son? I'm the daughter. I said, have you been watching the house? She said, on and off. Why? I said, Nothing. She said, I don't know what there is to look so suited about. I said, you'd best come in. It's 9 o'clock when I hear the car outside. I'm sitting watching TV. I said, oh, hello. Did you have a nice time? She said, yes. Yes, we did. Thank you. Did you get your suntan lotion? She said, what suntan lotion? You were going to get suntan lotion. Never mind. You've forgotten. How's Mr. Turnbull? Frank? He's all right. She said, I'm sure you could get to like him if you'd only get to know him. I said, well, you should have brought him in. She said, well, I will next time. It would be nice if now and again we could go off as a threesome. What have you done? Nothing, I said. Just sat here. Been all right? You see, she said, there was nobody outside. Oh, yes, there was. She said, oh, Graham, did you take a tablet? Take a tablet. I said, I don't want one of my tablets. I'll tell you who was outside. Mrs. Pamela Musgrave. She said, who's she? Nay Turnbull, daughter of your hubby-to-be. She said, he hasn't got a daughter. He's got a son down south. He hasn't got a daughter. She said, you're making things up now. Take one of your tablets. I said, I'm not making it up. And there's something else I'm not making up. Mrs. Turnbull. She said, there isn't a Mrs. Turnbull. She's dead. I'm going to the lab. I said, she's not dead. She's in a wheelchair with a broken heart. He's been having you on. After a bit, she comes out. You're making this up. The number's on the pad. Ring up. She's disabled as his wife. Has been for 10 years. Their daughter looks after them. You're not the first. He's always doing it. One moment it was going to be Barbados. Someone spotted you together at Bolton Abbey. A well-wisher. Tenerife. Bit later, I took her a cup of tea. She'd been crying. She said, I bought this little bed jacket. He was right enough. What can you expect at my age? How old am I? He's 72. She said, that's another thing. I remembered with Frank, I don't remember with you. I said, I'm sorry. She said, you're not sorry. How are you sorry? You'd never liked him. I said, he wasn't good enough for you. She said, I'm the best judge of that. He was natty, which is more than can be said for you. I said, I understand, ma'am. She said, you don't understand, you. How can you understand? You're not normal. I said, I'm going to bed. After a bit, she comes screaming outside the bedroom door. You think you've got it over me, Graham Whittaker? Well, you haven't. I've got it over you. I said, go back to bed. She said, I know the kind of magazines you read. I said, chess. You'll catch cold. She said, there never are chess. Chess with no clothes on. Chess in the birthday suits, that kind of chess. Chess men. I said, go back to bed. Turn your blanket off. Next day she's right as rain. Forgotten all about it, never mentions it anyway. Until we're just leaving the house and she said,
I do love you, Graham. I said I love you too. She said, anyway, you had a hearing aid. She said, what's on the agenda for today then? I said, well, I thought we could have a ride out to Ripon. She said, oh, Ripon, yes. That's nice. We could go to see the cathedral. We like old buildings, don't we? You and me. She put her arm through mine.